Hey guys. So, I know this is going to sound crazy, but I promise it's all real. I've always prided myself on being close to my family. We've had our fair share of ups and downs, but at the end of the day, we were always there for each other. At least that's what I thought. My name is Emily, and today, I'm about to share something with you that changed everything for me. Before I get into it though, I'd really appreciate it if you could like this video and leave a comment about where you're watching from. Oh, and don't forget to follow the channel for more updates. Trust me, you don't want to miss the rest of this story. Alright, now let's get into it. It all started a few months ago. I remember sitting at the dinner table with my parents, Laura and James, and my sister Sarah. The conversation was pretty casual at first. Just family stuff, you know. We were talking about everything and nothing at the same time. But then, my mom, Laura, suddenly dropped a bombshell that I never expected. She said, "We think it's time for you to help Sarah with her mortgage." I'll be honest, I froze. I didn't know how to react. I love my sister, I really do. But helping her with something like that? Paying her mortgage? I mean, I'm not exactly rich myself, and I've always worked hard for everything I have. And it's not like Sarah doesn't have a good job. She does. But she's always had a way of asking for help, making it seem like it was the only option. It's not that I didn't care about her situation. It's just, this felt too much. I looked at my dad, James, waiting for him to say something. He didn't. My parents are old-fashioned, and they have a way of thinking that family should always help each other, no matter what. But I've always been more independent. I think that's why I was shocked by what they were asking. I took a deep breath and said, "I'm really sorry, but I can't do that. I have my own expenses, and I'm not in a position to help with something like this." At first, they seemed surprised, but then my mom gave me this look. It wasn't anger, but it was something I couldn't quite place. She didn't say anything for a while, and I thought maybe she'd let it go. I mean, I had a right to say no, right? But that's when things started to take a weird turn. A few days later, I got a letter in the mail. It was from my parents' lawyer. I couldn't believe my eyes when I read it. Apparently, they were suing me. Yes, suing me, my parents, the people who raised me, the people I thought would always have my back, were now suing me because I refused to pay my sister's mortgage. The letter stated that I had betrayed the family, and that I was legally obligated to help Sarah. The thing is, I didn't even know what to make of this. How could they be doing this to me? I wasn't refusing to help them. I just couldn't afford to do what they were asking. It was like a nightmare. I spent the whole night trying to process everything. The next day, I called them to ask what was going on. My mom answered, and I could hear the frustration in her voice when she said, "You've disappointed us. We thought you would do what's right for the family." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I had always tried to do what was right, but what they were asking for felt wrong. This wasn't about helping. It was about expectation, manipulation, and guilt. But the real shock came when my dad, James, got on the phone. He said something that made my heart drop. He told me that if I didn't comply, I'd be cut off from the family. Cut off. As in, no contact, no holidays, nothing. That's when I knew I was in way over my head. The situation had taken a dark turn, and I didn't know what to do. I kept asking myself, how did it get to this point? I couldn't sleep that night. Kept tossing and turning, my mind racing with 1,000 thoughts. How did everything spiral out of control so quickly? My parents, who had always been my rock, had now turned on me. They were demanding I pay for something I couldn't afford. And the worst part? They were suing me over it. I couldn't believe that the people I trusted the most, my own flesh and blood, were capable of doing this. And Sarah, I still loved her, but I couldn't help but feel hurt by her role in all of this. Sure, she'd always been the baby of the family, the one who needed extra attention, but this was too much. The next day, I found myself pacing around my apartment, trying to think of a way out of this nightmare. I wasn't a lawyer. I didn't even know where to begin when it came to handling a lawsuit from my own parents. It was as if the ground beneath me had shifted, and I was trying to find my footing. Then, my phone rang. I hesitated before answering, but I knew it was inevitable. It was my mom, Laura. Her name flashed on the screen, and for a moment I considered ignoring it. But I couldn't do that. I still loved her, even though everything felt so messed up right now. "Emily," she said, her voice cold, distant. "We need to talk." I tried to keep my voice steady. "I don't know what else there is to say, Mom. You're suing me. I don't know how it got to this point." She sighed, and I could hear the frustration in her voice. "You don't understand. Sarah is in a bad spot. She needs help, and you're the only one who can give it to her. You're not just refusing to help, you're refusing to be part of this family." Her words stung more than I expected. Refusing to be part of the family? I'd spent my whole life doing everything I could for them. I helped with the bills when they struggled. I made time for every family event, and I supported my sister through all of her tough moments. But now I was being told that this one moment was enough to strip me of my place in the family. I took a deep breath, trying to calm myself before responding. "Mom, I'm not refusing to help Sarah. I just can't pay her mortgage. I've got my own bills to worry about. I don't have the kind of money to take on something like this. You're asking too much of me." There was silence on the other end for what felt like an eternity. Then my mom spoke, but her tone was even colder than before. "You're making a mistake. You'll regret this." I hung up without saying another word. My heart was pounding in my chest, and tears burned my eyes. How had it come to this? Why couldn't they see how wrong this was? They had always taught me to stand up for what's right, yet now they were pushing me to do something that felt deeply wrong. I needed to talk to Sarah. Maybe she'd be able to help me understand what was happening. But when I called her, her response made me feel even more confused. "Em, I know you're upset, but you don't get it. I'm really struggling. I've tried everything, and I can't make ends meet. You're the only one who can help me," Sarah said. Her voice was soft, almost pleading, but I could hear the desperation behind her words. "Sarah, I know you're going through a tough time, but I can't just pay your mortgage. I have my own life to handle, my own financial situation. It's not like I don't care, but this is too much. I don't have that kind of money," I replied, trying to stay calm. She was quiet for a moment, then whispered, "I never wanted it to come to this. I don't know what to do anymore." Hearing her so vulnerable almost made me want to cave in. I hated seeing her like this, but I had to remind myself that I couldn't sacrifice everything for her. I couldn't risk my own future, my own security, just to fix a problem that wasn't mine to solve. "Sarah, I wish things were different, but I'm not the answer. I just can't do it." There was a long pause before she spoke again. "I understand, but just know that this is going to change everything. You're going to lose a lot more than money." Her words sent a chill down my spine, but I didn't know what else to say. What did she mean by that? What was I really losing in all of this? I ended the call feeling worse than before. My sister's words echoed in my head, and the weight of everything seemed even heavier. I had never imagined that one decision could tear my family apart. And yet, here I was, staring down a lawsuit, facing the possibility of losing everything I'd ever known. The days following that phone call felt like a blur. Every time I tried to move forward, to get back to my normal life, I was reminded that things would never be the same. My parents' lawsuit was now official, and I couldn't shake the sinking feeling that I was caught in something far bigger than I had ever imagined. I didn't know what to do next. I couldn't afford a lawyer, and I certainly didn't know how to navigate this kind of situation on my own. I felt helpless, completely out of my depth. Every time I looked at the letter from the lawyer, my stomach churned. The legal jargon was enough to make me feel like I was losing control over my own life. I decided to reach out to a friend, Jenna, who had been through a tough legal battle with her own family a few years ago. Maybe she could give me some advice, or at least some comfort in this storm of confusion. "Hey, Emily," Jenna answered, her voice warm but concerned. "I saw what's been going on with your parents. I'm so sorry you're dealing with this. I know how hard family drama can be. How are you holding up?" I felt a lump form in my throat, but I swallowed it down. "I don't know, Jenna. I feel like I'm losing everything. My parents, they're suing me. And my sister Sarah is caught in the middle of all this. I just don't understand how it got to this point. I don't know what to do." Jenna sighed, a familiar sound that made me feel a little less alone. "It's complicated, Emily. But the first thing you need to do is find a lawyer. Don't try to handle this on your own. I know it's hard, but you need someone who understands the law and can help you navigate through all of this." Her advice was solid, but it didn't make it any easier. I didn't have the money to hire a lawyer. How could I afford that? How could I even get started? But Jenna's next words gave me some hope. "I know a lawyer who does free consultations. She helped me a lot, and she might be able to give you some direction. It's worth reaching out." I felt a small spark of relief. It was a start. The next day, I called the lawyer Jenna recommended, Carla Hayes. I was nervous, but I knew I needed to do something. When Carla answered, I explained my situation in a shaky voice, hoping she could at least point me in the right direction. "Emily, this is a tough situation, but you're not alone," Carla said. "Let's set up a meeting so we can go over everything. I'll help you understand your options." For the first time in weeks, I felt a glimmer of hope. Maybe there was a way out of this nightmare. A few days later, I sat across from Carla, in her office. She was calm and professional, and it made me feel a little less anxious. She had a no-nonsense approach, and she immediately put me at ease. "So, Emily, let's start from the beginning. You've been served with a lawsuit from your parents, right?" she asked. I nodded, feeling the weight of the situation all over again. "Yes, and it's really overwhelming. I don't even know where to start. They want me to pay my sister's mortgage, and when I said no, they decided to sue me." Carla leaned back in her chair, folding her arms. "I understand. Family situations like this are never easy. But the first thing you need to know is that in the eyes of the law, your parents can't force you to pay your sister's mortgage. There's no legal obligation for you to do that." I let out a breath I didn't realize I was holding. "So I'm not obligated to do this?" "Not legally, no. But it's a little more complicated than that. Your parents are likely trying to pressure you emotionally, but they're using legal means to do so. That's a form of manipulation, and you have every right to stand up for yourself." Her words made me feel a little better, but I still wasn't out of the woods yet. "But what happens now? What can I do to stop this lawsuit?" Carla's expression softened. "We'll file a motion to dismiss the lawsuit. It's not uncommon for people to use lawsuits as leverage in family matters. But it's important to have the legal right on your side. If your parents are suing you without a legitimate legal claim, we can have the case dismissed." The weight on my shoulders felt a little lighter, but I still wasn't sure what the emotional toll of all this would be. I knew the lawsuit was one thing, but losing my family, my parents, my sister, was a whole other beast. As I left Carla's office, I felt a mix of emotions. Part of me was relieved that there was a legal path forward, but another part of me couldn't shake the gnawing feeling that something had been broken irreparably. I wasn't just fighting for money or legal rights anymore. I was fighting for my place in a family that felt like it was slipping through my fingers. I still had to figure out how to deal with my parents, how to fix the broken trust between us. But for now, I had to focus on the legal side of things. But deep down, I knew that even if I won in court, I might lose the most important thing of all, my family. I thought getting legal help would be the hardest part, but nothing prepared me for the emotional weight of everything that followed. With Carla on my side, I had hope that the lawsuit would eventually be dismissed, but I knew that the damage to my relationship with my parents and Sarah was far from over. After the meeting with Carla, I decided I couldn't put off confronting my parents anymore. I had to speak to them. I owed it to myself and to them to at least try to understand where they were coming from, even if it meant facing the harsh reality of how broken everything had become. I called my mom first. The phone rang for what felt like forever, and when she finally answered, I could hear the hesitation in her voice. "Emily," she said, her tone distant. "Are you calling to talk about the lawsuit again?" "Mom, I need to talk to you," I replied, my voice shaking a little. "I can't keep doing this. I'm not trying to hurt anyone, but you can't force me to do something I just can't do." There was silence on the other end of the line before she spoke again. "I know you think we're asking too much, but Emily, Sarah is your sister. She's been struggling, and she's counting on you. I thought you understood that family helps family." I clenched my fists, trying to hold back my tears. "I understand that, but you're not seeing the bigger picture. This isn't about helping her anymore. It's about manipulating me, and it's not fair to put that on me." "Manipulating you?" she snapped. "You think this is manipulation? You're the one who's refusing to be there for your family. This is what you're doing to us, Emily. You're tearing us apart." Her words stung more than I expected. I had always been the one to hold the family together, to try to keep the peace. But now, my refusal to comply with their demands was causing everything to unravel. "I'm not trying to tear anyone apart," I whispered, "but I can't be the one who sacrifices everything. I need you to understand that." "I don't know if I can understand that, Emily," she replied quietly, her voice heavy with emotion. "But maybe I need to let you go. Maybe you don't need to be part of this family anymore." Her words hit me like a punch to the gut. I thought I was ready for it, but hearing it come from her, the person who had always been my biggest supporter, shattered me. "I need time," I said, trying to hold back tears. "I just need time to think." I ended the call and sat in silence for what felt like hours. My chest ached with the weight of everything. The overwhelming sadness of knowing that the family I had always leaned on was no longer there for me. It wasn't just the lawsuit anymore. It was the fact that they couldn't see my side, couldn't understand why I had to make this choice. A few days later, I called Sarah. I knew I had to at least try to talk to her, to see if there was any way to fix the damage that had been done. But when she picked up the phone, I immediately felt that familiar distance. "Hey, Em," Sarah said, her voice flat. "What's going on?" "Sarah, I don't know what to do," I said, my voice cracking. "I've tried to explain to Mom and Dad why I can't pay your mortgage, but they just keep pushing me. I'm getting pulled in every direction, and I don't know how much more I can take." There was a long pause on the other end of the line, and I could almost hear her processing my words. "I know it's hard, Em. I never wanted it to be like this. I just don't know what else to do. I'm drowning here. I get it, Sarah," I said, my voice softening. "But I can't be the one to fix everything for you. I need you to understand that." "I understand," she said, but her voice didn't sound convincing. "But this is going to change everything between us, Em. I don't know how we can come back from this." Her words made my stomach drop. I knew our relationship had changed. but hearing her say it out loud made it all the more real. "I'm sorry," I whispered. "But I just can't do it." The silence between us felt like a chasm, one that I wasn't sure we could ever cross again. The pain of knowing that my sister, my own flesh and blood, was now caught in the middle of all this, and the distance growing between us was more than I could bear. A few days passed, and I found myself in a spiral of guilt and anxiety. The lawsuit was still looming over me, and while I knew Carla was working on a motion to dismiss, the emotional toll was relentless. I couldn't stop thinking about my parents, about Sarah, and whether I had made the right decision. It felt like every corner I turned, I was faced with a wall. Family meant everything to me. But was my loyalty to them worth sacrificing my own mental health and stability? The more I thought about it, the more I realized that there were no easy answers here. I couldn't fix everything. I couldn't be the solution to their problems when I was barely holding my own life together. And then, one evening, I received an unexpected call from my dad. "Emily," he said, his voice strained. "I think we need to talk." I stared at my phone for a long moment after my dad's name flashed on the screen. This call was different. Up until now, every conversation with my parents had felt like an emotional battlefield. I wasn't sure I was ready to face them again, especially after everything that had happened. But part of me knew I needed to hear him out. Maybe there was still a chance for reconciliation. I took a deep breath and answered the call. "Dad," I said, my voice shaky. "What's going on?" There was a long pause before he finally spoke. His voice sounded tired. It wasn't the angry tone I had grown used to in recent weeks. There was a vulnerability in his words that I wasn't expecting. "Emily," he said softly, "I've been thinking a lot about everything, about how things have been between us lately, and I don't know how to fix this. I know you're angry, but I don't want to lose you." His words hit me like a tidal wave. For weeks I had been bracing myself for more anger, more blame, but this was different. The man I had always thought of as strong and unshakable was admitting that he didn't know what to do. For a moment, I couldn't speak. I was trying to process the change in his voice, trying to make sense of what I was hearing. "Dad," I whispered, "I don't want to lose you either. But I can't be part of a family that's trying to make me feel guilty for setting boundaries. I've always been there for you and Mom, but I can't keep sacrificing myself for the sake of everyone else. I have to take care of myself too." There was another long pause. I could hear him breathing heavily, as if he was trying to find the right words. "I understand, Emily. I do. But I'm just so lost. I thought I was doing what was best for Sarah, and for you too. I don't want to push you away, but I don't know how to handle all of this." Hearing him speak so openly made the tears well up in my eyes. My heart ached for him, for the man who had always been my protector, now sounding so fragile. I realized then that my parents were just as lost as I was in all of this. They were trying to protect Sarah, but they couldn't see the damage they were causing to me. They didn't understand that their expectations were weighing me down. "I know you're trying to help Sarah, Dad," I said quietly, "but the way you're going about it isn't right. It's not right to ask me to sacrifice everything. I can't fix everything for her. I'm just one person. I can't carry all that weight. I never meant for you to feel like you had to carry it all, Emily," he said, his voice breaking. "I'm so sorry." That apology, the genuine sorrow in his words, made me realize how much my father had been struggling with all of this, too. It wasn't just about the lawsuit, about money, or even about Sarah. It was about family expectations, about love and guilt. and about the fear of losing everything. I just don't know where we go from here, I admitted, feeling the tears finally spill down my cheeks. I don't know if we can fix this. Maybe we can start small, he said, his voice softer now. Maybe we can just try to understand each other again. I'm sorry for pushing you, Emily. I really am. I never wanted it to come to this. I wiped away my tears and nodded, even though he couldn't see me. I don't want to lose you, Dad. I don't want to lose this family. But I need you to understand that I can't be everything for everyone. I have to be true to myself. There was a silence on the other end of the line, but it wasn't the uncomfortable silence it had been during our earlier conversations. This one felt hopeful. Like maybe, just maybe, we were on the verge of something different. Something better. I understand, Emily, he said after a moment, and I'll work on that. I will. For the first time in weeks, I felt like maybe there was a way forward. Maybe things didn't have to be as broken as they seemed. Maybe, just maybe, we could rebuild from here. The conversation with my dad left me with a strange sense of relief, but also a deep sadness. I wasn't sure if things would ever be the same, but I was beginning to see that the path to healing would require more than just words. It would take time, understanding, and a lot of patience. But for the first time, in a long while, I felt like there was hope. The next day, I received a text from Sarah. It was simple, just 2 words. I'm sorry. I stared at the message for a long time, unsure of what to say. I wanted to reply, but I didn't know how to express everything I was feeling. I wanted to forgive her, but I was still hurt, still reeling from everything that had happened. I thought about calling her, but then I realized something. I didn't need to fix everything in one moment. We didn't need to talk about the mortgage or the lawsuit right now. What mattered was that we started rebuilding our relationship, one step at a time. We could figure the rest out later. I sent a simple reply. I'm sorry too. We'll figure it out. I hit send, then leaned back in my chair, allowing myself a moment of peace. It wasn't going to be easy, but it was a start. The days after my conversation with my dad felt surreal. A part of me had hoped for some grand resolution, like everything would magically fall back into place. But reality isn't so kind. Things didn't heal overnight. I wasn't expecting them to, but I couldn't help but feel the weight of the changes hanging over me. After that call with my dad, I decided to take some time for myself. It wasn't just about the lawsuit anymore. It was about regaining a sense of balance in my own life. I was exhausted, emotionally and physically drained. Between the constant worry, the legal battle, and trying to keep my family intact, I felt like I was about to collapse. So I took a few days off work and decided to go for a long walk in the park near my apartment. I needed space to breathe, to think, to clear my mind. It wasn't just about my family anymore. I needed to find a way to take care of myself. As I walked through the park, the fresh air hit my face, and for the first time in weeks, I allowed myself to relax. I watched the kids playing, couples walking hand in hand, and people going about their daily lives without a care in the world. I realized how much I had lost sight of my own life in the midst of everything. It wasn't just about the lawsuit, my parents, or Sarah. It was about me, too. I sat on a bench for a while, letting the sun warm my face. The peacefulness around me was a stark contrast to the chaos I'd been living in. It was like I had been living in a storm, and for the first time in what felt like forever, I was able to see a glimpse of calm. But as I sat there, my phone buzzed in my pocket. My heart sank when I saw the name on the screen. It was from Carla, my lawyer. I hesitated for a moment before answering. Hey, Carla, what's up? Emily, she said, her voice serious. I just got an update on your case. There's been a development. My stomach churned. What do you mean? Is the motion to dismiss going through? There was a pause, and I could hear the tension in her voice. Not exactly. The judge has decided to move forward with the case. Your parents are pushing hard for a trial. They're not backing down. A wave of panic washed over me. This was not what I needed to hear. I had hoped that everything would just disappear once the motion to dismiss went through, but now it was clear that the battle was far from over. So, what does that mean for me? I asked, my voice trembling. What happens now? It means that things are going to get more complicated, Carla replied. We're going to have to prepare for a trial. We need to gather more evidence, build a stronger case. It's going to take time. The words felt like a punch in the gut. A trial? I wasn't prepared for this. I wasn't prepared to fight my own family in court. I had been hoping for a peaceful resolution, for a way to avoid all of this, but now, it felt like the storm I had been running from was right in front of me. I don't know if I can do this, I whispered, feeling the tears well up again. I can't imagine going to court against my parents, against my family. I know this is difficult, Emily, Carla said gently, but we'll get through it. You don't have to go through this alone. I hung up a few minutes later, my mind spinning. The weight of everything, the lawsuit, my parents, my sister, felt heavier than ever before. I was exhausted, and the thought of facing all of this in a courtroom was almost too much to bear. But there was no turning back now. I had to prepare. I had to stand up for myself, even if it meant going up against the people I loved the most. That evening, I decided to call my dad again. I needed to hear his voice, to try and make sense of what was happening. The last conversation we'd had left me with a sense of hope, but now I felt like we were back to square one. The reality of the lawsuit was setting in, and it didn't feel like there was any easy way out. Dad, I said when he picked up the phone. We need to talk. Emily, he replied, his voice soft. I was just about to call you. How are you holding up? I took a deep breath before responding. I don't know. The lawsuit's moving forward. It's going to trial. There was a long silence on the other end of the line. When my dad finally spoke, his voice was full of regret. I never wanted this for you, Emily. I'm so sorry. I swallowed hard. I don't know what to do, Dad. I don't want to fight you in court, but I don't know if we can resolve this without going through with it. I don't know either, he admitted, his voice heavy. But we need to find a way to fix this. We can't just keep going down this path. Then what do we do? I asked, my voice breaking. How do we stop this? I don't know, sweetheart, he said, and I could hear the pain in his voice. But I promise you, I'm going to try. We'll figure this out. We have to. The conversation ended on a note of uncertainty, and I was left feeling like I was back where I started, caught between my family, the lawsuit, and the fear that everything was falling apart. But one thing was certain. I wasn't ready to give up on them just yet. I wasn't ready to lose my family. The days following my conversation with my dad were a whirlwind of emotions. I couldn't stop thinking about the trial, about the looming court date, and about what the future might hold. It felt like I was stuck in limbo, not knowing what the next move would be or whether things would ever go back to the way they were. The pressure was becoming unbearable. Between the legal battle, my strained relationship with my family, and the constant worry, I felt like I was slowly losing control over everything in my life. My job was starting to suffer too. I couldn't focus. I couldn't concentrate. My mind was always elsewhere, trapped in the whirlwind of family drama and looming court proceedings. And then there was Sarah. I hadn't spoken to her in days. and every time I tried to call, I was left with an empty voicemail box. She wasn't answering my messages, and I couldn't shake the feeling that things between us might never be the same. I spent most of the following weekend at home, pacing around my apartment, unable to focus on anything. I tried to distract myself by watching TV, but it felt like everything on the screen was a reminder of what was happening in my life. Nothing felt real. Nothing felt normal anymore. Then, on Sunday afternoon, I received a text from Sarah. It was a simple message, but it felt like the weight of the world had lifted off my shoulders just by seeing it. "Can we talk?" My heart skipped a beat. I hadn't expected to hear from her, not after everything that had happened. But maybe, just maybe, this was the break I needed. I quickly typed back, "Yes, please. I need to talk to you." She replied almost immediately, "Can I come over in an hour?" "Of course. I'll be here." I spent the next hour pacing again, my nerves getting the best of me. I had no idea what she was going to say, but I knew we needed to have a conversation. The longer we went without speaking, the more I felt like we were slipping further apart. This wasn't just about the lawsuit or the mortgage. It was about the bond we shared as sisters, and I wasn't ready to lose that. When Sarah arrived, she looked different. There was a heaviness in her eyes that I hadn't seen before, and her usually confident demeanor was replaced with something far more fragile. We sat down on the couch, and for a moment, neither of us spoke. The tension between us was palpable, like we were both holding our breath, afraid of what would come next. Finally, Sarah broke the silence. I don't even know where to begin. I'm so sorry for everything. For the lawsuit. For making you feel like you had to carry all of this. I didn't realize how much pressure I was putting on you." I looked at her, my heart aching. This wasn't the sister I had known for years. The one who always knew how to make me laugh. The one I could count on through thick and thin. She was broken, and it hurt to see her like this. "Sarah, I'm not mad at you," I said, my voice steady but full of emotion. "I'm mad at the situation. I'm mad that we've gotten to this point. I never wanted it to be like this. I paused, struggling to find the right words. "I just can't be everything for everyone. I need you to understand that." "I do understand," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I don't expect you to fix everything, Em. I never did. I was scared. I didn't know what else to do. I've been drowning in debt, and I thought if you helped me, it would make everything better. But I see now that I was wrong. I should have never put that on you." Her words hit me like a wave. I wanted to comfort her, to tell her that everything would be okay, but I knew better. This wasn't something I could fix with just a few kind words. This was a deep-rooted problem, one that needed time and effort from both of us to heal. "I love you, Sarah," I said softly, "but we can't keep doing this to each other. I need to set boundaries for my own peace of mind. I can't let this lawsuit, this guilt consume me. I need to start thinking about myself too." She nodded, her eyes brimming with tears. "I know, Em. I've been selfish, and I'm sorry for that. I never meant for any of this to hurt you. I'll figure it out. I promise." We sat in silence for a while after that, both of us processing everything that had been said. It wasn't the perfect resolution I had hoped for, but it was a step forward. We had acknowledged the pain, the mistakes, and the need for change. And for the first time in a long time, I felt like there was hope. Before Sarah left, she hugged me tightly, and for the first time in weeks, I felt like maybe, just maybe, we would get through this. The next day, I met with Carla to discuss the next steps in the lawsuit. I felt more prepared than I had in a long time. Maybe things with my family weren't perfect yet, but the conversation with Sarah had given me a renewed sense of strength. Carla explained that the trial date was set, but we could still settle before it ever went to court. There was a chance, however small, that my parents might reconsider their position if we presented the right evidence. But I knew that no matter what happened, I was ready to stand my ground. "I won't back down," I said to Carla, feeling more certain than ever. "This isn't just about the money. It's about my future, my well-being. I can't let them control me anymore." Carla smiled, her tone professional but reassuring. "You've got this, Emily. And remember, no matter what happens, you're not alone in this. We'll fight this together." I left the meeting feeling more empowered than I had in months. The road ahead would be tough, but I wasn't afraid anymore. I was ready to face whatever came next. The days leading up to the trial were some of the longest and most challenging I've ever experienced. There were moments when I felt like I was losing my grip on everything, and then there were others when I felt determined, like I could finally see a path forward. But through it all, one thing became clear. I wasn't going to let this lawsuit define me. I wasn't going to let it tear apart what I had left of my family, even if it meant standing up to them in ways that were incredibly painful. Sarah and I had kept in touch, and although we still had a long way to go, we were slowly rebuilding the trust that had been shaken. She'd taken responsibility for her part in everything, and I'd done the same. But the most important thing we'd both realized was that we needed to be there for each other, not just when things were easy, but when they were hard. Family was about more than just helping with mortgages or settling debts. It was about being there through the messiest, most complicated parts of life. The day before the trial, I got a call from my dad. I had been avoiding his calls for the past week, not out of anger, but out of uncertainty. I wasn't sure what to expect anymore, and part of me feared that he'd try to pressure me into settling for a quick resolution. But this time, his voice was different. "Emily," he said, his voice shaky. "I know you've been preparing for this trial, and I want you to know I've been thinking a lot about everything. I don't want to go to court. I don't want to fight you anymore. I don't know if I can make things right, but I want to try." My heart skipped a beat, and for a moment I was speechless. This wasn't what I had expected. This wasn't the same man who had threatened to cut me off, who had pressured me into paying for Sarah's mortgage. This was someone who was finally acknowledging the pain we had all been through. "Dad, are you saying you want to drop the lawsuit?" I asked carefully, my voice barely above a whisper. "I think it's time we all take a step back," he replied. "I've been wrong, Emily. I've put too much on your shoulders, and I've realized that if we go through with this trial, we might lose everything that really matters. I don't want that. I just want to fix things." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. My dad, the man who had once made it clear that this was a battle he was willing to fight, was now offering an olive branch. It felt surreal, like a dream I couldn't fully comprehend. "I don't want to lose you either, Dad," I said, my voice thick with emotion. "But we can't keep doing this to each other. We can't keep holding on to the past. We need to move forward, together, but only if we can learn to respect each other's boundaries." He was quiet for a moment before responding. "I understand, Emily. I'm sorry for everything." I sat in stunned silence, my hands trembling as I held the phone. This wasn't over yet, but it felt like we were finally on the road to healing. There was still so much to work through, but I felt a sense of relief that I hadn't felt in weeks. The next morning, I met with Carla to discuss the options. We were still scheduled for trial, but there was now the possibility of reaching a settlement before it ever went to court. My parents had come to their senses, and they were willing to try to work things out without the drama of a public trial. "I think this could be the break you've been waiting for, Emily," Carla said. "It's not going to be easy, but if you and your family can sit down and really talk, maybe we can avoid the trial altogether. It could be a better outcome for everyone." As I left the meeting, I couldn't help but feel a little hopeful. The past few months had been nothing short of a nightmare, but for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was starting to take control of my own life again. The lawsuit had exposed deep flaws in my family's dynamic, but it had also pushed me to stand up for myself, to set boundaries, and to demand respect. That afternoon, I called Sarah to tell her what had happened. She was quiet for a long time before responding. "Are you serious?" she asked, her voice full of disbelief. "I think they're finally realizing that this is tearing us apart," I said. "We still have a lot of work to do, but I'm hopeful." "I don't know what to say, Em. I never thought they'd back down." "Neither did I admitted, my voice full of wonder. "But I think we're all ready to do the work. It's not going to be easy, but we can fix this. We just need to be honest with each other." Sarah was quiet for a moment, then said, softly, "I'm proud of you, Em. I don't know what's going to happen, but I'm glad we're talking again." I smiled, feeling a weight lift off my chest. It wasn't over yet, but I had hope. For the first time in months, I felt like things were finally starting to fall into place. The next few weeks were filled with tough conversations. My parents agreed to meet with Carla and me to discuss the terms of a settlement. It wasn't easy, and there were plenty of tears and heated moments, but we all made a commitment to each other. We would work through this, together. No more blame. No more guilt. Just a chance to rebuild the trust that had been lost. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start.